Hey y'all, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. And if you're new around here, hello and welcome. My name is Katie Marie, and today we are going to be talking about palettes that I almost bought, but I was able to control myself and I didn't buy. So these are all palettes that I really wanted. I was like this close to purchasing them, but I did talk myself out of them and I have not purchased them. So we're gonna go over what those palettes were. I'm gonna share with you guys why I wanted them originally, why I decided not to get them, and if I have any like regret now that I haven't purchased them. Looking back, do I have any FOMO and whatnot? I got this video inspiration or this video idea from Angelica today. She actually posted a video like this and I was like, oh my goodness, that's such a good idea, because there have been a lot of palettes recently that I have been so very close to wanting to purchase myself. And so I started making a list and I had 10 palettes. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna do this video today. So that is the theme of this video. I hope you guys enjoy it. You guys know I love to talk about eyeshadow palettes, and getting to talk about eyeshadow palettes that I don't have, but I really did kind of want, and I really did almost buy them, I thought would be a wonderful addition to the channel. So let's go ahead and roll the intro and we can get right into it. Alright, so I moved the camera over so that we have a room to put the picture here, but the first palette I want to talk about is the Juvia's Place palette called the Olori palette. This palette right here, when it launched with another palette which I think was more so just a blue palette, but this one caught my eye because I really do enjoy the mix of blue and orange or green and orange, and this one had a little bit of each, and yeah, I was super intrigued. I was super tempted. I do enjoy these little 6-pan palettes from Juvia's Place. I tend to be able to review them in a more reasonable manner because they are smaller, so I'm able to test them out thoroughly and get my reviews out. So I was like, oh, you know what? I think I want to get this. And I was looking at it up close, but the more I looked at it, the more I talked myself out of it, because the two shimmers, the like blue-green shimmers in the palette, honestly, I feel like even in swatches, they look so very identical. Like one's just a little more blue leaning and one's just a little more green leaning. And I was just kind of like, why? In a tiny little palette, why put two shades that are so close? And then on top of that, these two aren't as close, but the oranges, there's a more of a red orange and there's more of like a, I would say a dirty orange or like a grungy orange in the palette. And while there are differences to them, still they are so similar that I feel like majority of my looks that I would get with this palette would be so very similar, because two of the shades are like literally identical metallics in my opinion. They're very close. And then the other two are so similar, and both of them are the same type of finish, so you would be using them in the same way. And I just had my doubts of how much I could, how much versatility I could get out of this palette. So I did really want it because I do enjoy this color story. I think it's really fun mix with orange and green and orange and blue. There was just that kind of hold up for me that every time I went to buy it, I was just like, they're just so close. Like, I don't understand why they did that. So I kept hemming and hawing, and eventually, days turned to weeks, and then weeks was turned into a month, and I was like, okay, it's way too long now, and I just let it go. But when it first launched, I really did want to pick this up, but I just talked myself out of it because of how similar it is. And now that it's been so many months, I really don't have any regrets looking back at it. I mean, looking back at it now, I still think that those shades in there are way too close. And like I said, the looks that I would have gotten from the palette, even if I changed up the different colors that I used, it would have been really hard to get a whole lot of versatility in the palette just because of how close those two groups, the blues and the oranges, are together. I wish they would have put just something else. Maybe if they're that close, put them different, different finishes. Do like a matte and a shimmer instead of both of them being shimmers and the other one, both of them being matte. So yeah, that was the first one that I thought of months ago at this point. When was this? On November of 2021. So yeah, it's been a little while, but still a palette that I was this close to buying. All right, a little more recent now. I'm working from like the oldest all the way up to the newest ones, and the newest one, the one we're gonna talk about at the end, it like was just launched today, and I'm still like, oh, I want to buy. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm kind of going back older, starting at the beginning of the video, and then we'll finish up with the newer ones. But the next one was the Sola Look limited edition Dirty Dancing the Lift 3D palette. So this palette right here was an all blue palette, and it was just an all blue palette. I thought that they did so well. They have a really dark matte blue in there. They have a really light pastel blue in there. They have a very like a bright, almost like a baby blue, but still nice and bright type of shimmer in there. And then they have a very special looking shimmer that's like a blue, but it also looks like it might be greeny. I'm not sure how it would reflect, but it was definitely different from the other shimmer in there. And I was like, yes, each one of those are different. None of them are too close. That's how you do a quad. That's how you do a quad that I enjoy. And I just felt like I would be able to get a lot of looks out of this palette that I would enjoy. I've never tried Sola Look. I don't have a whole lot of all blue theme palettes in my collection. So this was one that I went back and forth for a very long time when it was launching, trying to decide if I was going to get it or not, because I was really tempted. I really did want to pick it out. I almost did, but I just, at the time, I mean, I feel like I always say this, but at the time, definitely, I had a lot of palettes. I still have a lot of palettes, but you know, I had a lot of palettes I was trying to get through. I knew there was some coming out that I wanted to pick up, so I just talked myself out of it and ended up not picking it up. I have a little bit of a regret not picking it up because I would have liked to try the brand, and I do think that the brand is closing. If I remember the last announcement they made, yep, so look, it's closing. So they are shutting down, which is really sad, and I won't have an opportunity to try them anymore, but I don't know, they just seem like they did a really good job with that all blue palette, and I have a little bit of regret now because it's just a solid quad when it comes to an all blue palette. It's got the dark matte for the outer crease, it's got the light for the inner crease, and we are working it in and blending out the outer crease, and then it's just that hold it shimmer that looks so pretty mixed with the bright blue on the center of the lid. That would be a really pretty look. So a little bit of regret, but honestly, looking back now, who knows if I would have been able to review it in time before the brand announced they were closing. So I suppose it all worked out, but still, I do regret it just a little bit. So when Colored Raine launched their maybe not most recent, but when they launched their recent-ish collection of 6-pan palettes, they have a neutral chic, a pretty chic, a wealthy chic, and a sunset chic. I actually picked up the wealthy chic, and I do have a video using this on my channel if you're curious, but I picked this up. But when I purchased this, I was literally this close to adding the Sunset Chic palette into my cart because I just thought that this was a really, really fun palette. I am really someone like, yes, I know I tend to not really enjoy neutral looks, but a sunset look, that's something I can always get down for. And the way they did this sunset look, I just felt like the looks that I would have been able to get were just so fun and vibrant. I love that they had that mustardy shade in there, the really good orange, the really nice red, and then a nice deeper kind of reddish brown tone for the outer corner to add depth to a look. And then the shimmers also I thought were really nice. They have more of like a lighter bronzy type of cream shimmer, but then more of like an orangey type of shimmer. So they were different, and I just felt like all around, all of the shades in here I would have enjoyed creating looks with, and I could have gotten a lot of really pretty sunset looks. I could have done an all matte with the yellow, orange, and red and more burnt-ish dark shade. All matte look that would have been so very pretty as well. So yeah, I almost bought this. Do I have regrets? No, because I have enough palettes, and I did pick up the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda. What is this one called? The Basic palette, and this is an all matte that kind of has, I mean, not exactly, of course, but it has the yellow, the orange, and the red in there for me to kind of get that same look. So I feel like I'll be able to get that all matte look I was thinking of you know, creating with the Sunset Chic palette. I think I'll be able to get it out of there, but still, I do enjoy the Wealthy palette. I've been really enjoying the formula. I think it's fantastic, and so I'm kind of looking back and like, oh, I probably would have really enjoyed that Sunset palette, wouldn't I? But at the time, I really talked myself out of it. I didn't need another palette. I never need another palette, but there's just sometimes palettes I'm able to talk myself out of more than others, and this was one of them that I was able to talk myself out of, so I decided not to buy it. Moving right along, another launch that I almost purchased something from was from GlamLite's Hershey collection. When GlamLite collabed with Hershey, I almost bought the blue palette. So this palette right here. They came out with 5 of them, and one was pink themed, purple themed, one was just a brown themed, and one was a different type of brown themed palette, but one was a blue themed palette. Again, kind of going back to the Sola look, I've been kind of intrigued to get more blue palettes in my collection because I don't have many, and this was the one palette that kind of stood out to me. I love that it had a really dark, very dark looking matte blue in there, but then it had 2 other type of blues that looked like it had more depth, more lightness to them to really blend out a look, and then it had some fun shimmers that didn't look too close. So this was a small 6-pan blue eyeshadow palette that I thought they did well, and that I would be able to get a lot of different type of looks and a little bit of versatility for it being a monochromatic blue palette. I could still get some versatility out of the palette, and I was so very close, and I almost did pick it up, but I kind of talked myself out of it. One, because I feel like with GlamLite, by the time I get it as a customer, I feel like it's a little bit old news by the time I can get it in my hands, and then by the time I'm able to do a video out of it, it's just a little bit later. So I was like, you know what? A lot of my friends get it in PR. They're already going to be doing videos of it. I'll just wait and watch their videos and just live vicariously through them as they share their video. All my experience with GlamLite, I don't have a ton of experience with GlamLite, I should say. I think I've tried like 3 or 4 of their palettes, but my experience with them is that I do really enjoy their mattes, and their shimmers are pretty, but not my favorite, and they, for me personally, I feel like are a lot of work to put on. They just are a little bit tough to pick up on brushes, and if I don't want to use my finger, that type of thing. So they're not my favorite type of shimmer, but they are pretty. I know a lot of people like them. But yeah, just for me, I do enjoy their mattes. The most recent one I tried was the Dirty Martini one, the green monochromatic palette, and the mattes in there were beautiful. But yeah, I almost picked this up. Do I have regrets? No. No, honestly, thinking about it, thinking about storing that Hershey shape palette, I'm glad I don't have to. So as much as it was a cute color story, and I am sure I would have enjoyed it and enjoyed creating looks out of it, and I still kind of want to expand my blue monochromatic eyeshadow palette collection, because I think I only have like maybe one quad. I really don't think I have many. No, I'll just wait a little bit longer, because the Hershey palette was cute, but I feel like it would have just been very bulky to store. Another palette that I contemplated picking up, and I was very close to picking up, was the Juvia's Place, another Juvia's Place, but this was the Culture collection, specifically the Culture palette that they launched. They came out with liquid eyeshadows as well, and maybe lipsticks, I can't even remember, but we're just talking about palettes in this video, so we'll focus on the palettes. I almost picked up that palette because I loved all of the color in there. There was a nice array from purple, they had some blue, a little bit of like a neutral tone in there, and then it had some really bright and vibrant pinks going all the way to green, and then to the oranges and yellows. It was a pretty rainbow looking across the palette, and it had a nice mix of mattes and shimmers. I love that the mattes look like they go fairly deep, and the mattes also had a lot of brightness to them, and then the shimmers look really, really pretty. But I ended up deciding not to get it, mostly because I feel like visually, I wasn't crazy about how the palette looked. Like, just not specifically the outer packaging, even though that's not personally my favorite with the blocks of colors, but also when you open the palette up, I didn't like how they had the colors kind of behind the eyeshadows themselves, because I felt like it was very distracting and very hard for me to actually see the palette. That was just visually something that anytime I went to look at the palette and kind of, you know, sit there and think about whether I wanted to get it or not, that was always a deterrent, and for me it was just a bit of a con. I didn't really enjoy it. I know that's very maybe petty to not get a palette just because of the background of the packaging, but it just really deterred me. It really hindered me from being able to see the color and kind of imagine the types of looks that I could get from it. And then on top of that, it's a large palette. I was like, you know, by the time you're able to review that, because there are, you know, more shades, it's going to take longer with more looks. I just talked myself out of it. And I think the biggest reason was the packaging, you know, the way they did the background for the eyeshadows, but then also the size of it. It's just so very large. And I honestly didn't even keep up with the reviews when it came out to see if people liked it, if the quality was good. But yeah, I kind of talked myself out of it and then just checked out and really didn't think about it anymore after that. But that was definitely a palette. When it first launched, I was like, should I pick this up? Should I review it on my channel? And I was definitely tempted for a little bit before I kind of sat there and studied it, and I was just kind of like, no, I actually don't really like how that palette looks. So next one might be a little bit surprising, but I almost bought a Morphe palette. I know I feel like it's been ages since I've ever been attracted to a Morphe palette, but the Morphe and Lucky Charms collab almost got me. One, because of the palette. I think it's a very intriguing palette, but two, also the brushes. I was really tempted to pick up the brushes because I love all the different colors for the brushes, but specifically talking about the palette had enough greens in it and enough other pops of colors with the blue and the pink that it really tempted me. Like, I was sitting there thinking like, maybe I'll pick this up at Ulta. I even looked at it on the Ulta website because I was placing an order, and I was like, maybe I'll throw this in my cart and we'll just try it out. But the more I really studied it, the more I really focused on it, I was like, okay, kind of hiding the greens and those like the blue pops of colors with the red, a lot of the palette is like beigey or neutral or just very like toned down or dark shimmers, which I tend not to like. So I was like, you know what? It's probably less than half the palette that really grabs you. So do you need to pick it up? And also, it is Morphe, which I've never had a great track record when it comes to the quality of their shadows. So it's like, you know, you might not even be impressed. You have tons of palettes in your collection right now that you can test out, and I'm sure I'm gonna love their formula. So I talked myself out of it and I did not pick it up. But I have a little bit of regret, but mostly just for the palette packaging, honestly. I mean, yes, I would have enjoyed creating looks with those greens and blues in the palette, but I do really think that the palette packaging is cute. Lucky Charms is just such like a cheerful cereal, and like thinking back, it was like the one cereal in my childhood that we very rarely bought, but anytime we got it, it was just like, that was our dessert cereal. Like, we had to have other cereal first that was more like healthy and nourishing, and then Mama let us have a small bowl of Lucky Charms just because she was like, that's basically dessert. That's not breakfast. And so I just remember anytime we rarely got it, it was like dessert for breakfast type of thing. So I always loved that. But it's just kind of a nostalgic looking back, and it makes me think of my childhood. But yeah, looking at the palette and ignoring the collab, ignoring the bright, you know, colorful packaging, just looking at the eyeshadows, I probably would have only enjoyed really playing with the green section and probably the blues. And that's only if the quality was good, which is something that I honestly don't know when it comes to Morphe because it's been a while. So I probably just saved myself some money, and I don't have huge regrets thinking back at it. You guys know me and my love for green and green palettes, so I'm sure it comes as no surprise, but I almost bought the Colourpop Cosmetics, the Limelight palette. This palette I almost bought because, yo, I mean, it's green. Like, the packaging is so green. Like, I love that color green when it comes to the packaging that they did. They did that so well. They're tempting me so much, and yeah, I almost bought it. But then I was like, okay, Katie, ignore the packaging. Just look at the colors inside the palette. And that's when I looked at that, I looked at swatches, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be disappointed if I buy this again. If I'm buying it wanting to get a lot of really pretty like lime green looks, I am gonna be disappointed because the colors in general, like when you actually see them swatched, there's like one really lime green type of matte shadow. And the other ones are, you know, pretty as well. They're more softer shimmers, but in general, most of the palette is just very, very light with the one dark brown, which honestly looks like a more of a mid-tone brown. So I honestly probably just saved myself some disappointment there because I'm pretty sure I would have picked this up. I would have been so excited at the palette packaging, you know, so excited at how beautiful and green the palette packaging was. And then I would have started creating looks, and I would have, if I went into it expecting more of like a pastel limelight green, I probably would be happy. But wanting like lime green, like as lime green as the palette packaging looks like, I would have been disappointed. So some regrets not having the pretty packaging in my collection, but I'm trying to not collect palettes just for packaging. I have a few that I have done, but I really try to hold myself back and only get palettes that I'm expecting to actually enjoy the palette inside and not just the packaging. So yeah, I don't have too many regrets. It's okay. As much as I think it's a pretty palette, Colourpop always does pretty palettes, but I can't buy them all just because I don't enjoy the inside of them. All right, we're getting more recent here. We're coming to the end of the countdown, the 10 palettes that I almost bought, but the next one is going to be the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. When this first was teased, you know, I feel like Natasha Denona, her palettes always just get randomly teased before the official announcement because they like put it out in other countries like to be able to buy as a consumer before they announce it. Anyway, whatever the case is, when I first saw it teased, I was like, oh my goodness, I think I want to buy this. But then over the course of people sharing it and whatnot, a couple people kind of shared the image and covered up the really bright pastels. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, like I don't really like that palette so much anymore, especially when like the green was covered and the blue and the yellow. I was kind of like, oh, like that's not very pastelish. It was kind of the palette as a whole, once you covered those pops of colors, was really heavy on like the mauve pink, like really light pinky type of shades. And then I also saw swatches of it. And again, this is from someone just swatching on their arm. Maybe they didn't, you know, weren't really trying hard, but those swatches didn't look good. And it looked like the type of pastels that I don't like. And the type of pastels where when you start to use them, it just gives you the faintest hint of color on your lid. And I'm just like, no, that's not the type of pastel I like. If you're curious what I enjoy when it comes to pastel palettes, check out my top 10 spring palettes for 2022, because I just mentioned two or three, I can't even remember, 2 or 3 of my favorite pastel palettes that give so much color impact, so much saturation, and that you don't have to work to build up to even like see a hint. Like it shows up so easily. Those are the type of pastels I like. So seeing the swatches of the Natasha Denona palette, I was like, yeah, you're not gonna like it, Katie. You should just ignore it and just pass it by. And so I ended up not picking it up. And then seeing the looks that people are creating with the palette, it kind of just, you know, proves what I was thinking, that I was like, you're probably not going to enjoy that type of palette. All the looks that I've seen look very light and just like that really very light hint of color. And I haven't checked out a ton of videos to see if that was like easy to get, or if they were going for that light hint of color, or if they were like trying to build it up to get that light hint of color. So it could have been better quality than I assumed just from the first few swatches that I saw. But as a whole, I have no regrets passing it over, and I saved some money because Natasha Denona palettes are not cheap. Another palette that I almost bought, really almost bought, like literally kept going back and forth even the day it launched, was the ABH Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina 6 palette. The 6th one. I always get confused what number we're on, but when she showed the Norvina 6 palette, I was really tempted because there's a lot of very fun pops of colors. There's a whole row of really dark colors. You guys know how I like to deepen up my outer crease, and there was only one row of shimmers. The rest of the palette were all mattes, and I love working with mattes. I love creating all matte looks. There was a nice variety of like green in that palette with some orange. I was super tempted. I really kind of like wanted to buy this, and honestly I was kind of like, I think I'm gonna pick this up. Like I haven't tried ABH in forever. I'm curious how I'll like this formula. I've never tried the big Norvina palettes, and I've always heard people say good things about it. So I was like, you know what, I think this is gonna be it. Like this will be the Norvina palette that I tried. But I kept going back and forth, and then when launch day came, I was was like, you know what? It's a bigger palette. It doesn't have as much green as you would like. Like, I feel like as a whole, it's probably more heavy on the pink and peach aspect of it, because there's a whole row of like peach into pink and purple and like a periwinkle blue and whatnot. So I was like, you know what? You probably don't need this palette. And as much as I love how it's all matte, I love that dark row at the bottom with all the other colors, the brighter colors to work for in the crease and transition and whatnot. I just talked myself out of it and I didn't pick it up. And I have watched a couple people do looks with it since getting the palette, and the looks that they, you know, share look really pretty, look really intense, look like the formula is very nice, but do I have regrets? No, not really. Looking back, like, that was such a large palette. It would, again, large palettes just take me longer to get to, and I feel like I have so many palettes I'm trying to get to now. The smaller they are, the better, because it's just more manageable for me to get through right now, that I was like, you know what, as much as I would like to get it, and as much as it would have been fun to have, I have enough palettes. It's not like I have any FOMO over not getting it. It looks really nice. Quality looks like it's there, but it's okay. I don't have to have it. All right, the last one. As I said, this one just launched today. And when I say I have regrets, I still have some regrets. So this is a little bit of spoiler, but yes, I kind of have FOMO over this. But this is the Shroud Cosmetics Creepy Cute No. 2 palette. I kind of really want to get this still, but I'm talking myself out of it because she says on their website, one, I kind of missed the initial launch, so I know my order, if I placed it, I think I checked an hour after it launched, so I know if I placed it, my order would be very much behind. And I think she said at least like up to 3 weeks to ship, and we are preparing to move houses around that time. So I was like, you know what, if this palette showed up right around that time when we're moving, I'm not even going to be able to get to it. And by the time like my order gets through and she ships it to me, like I said, I didn't get there, you know, right away when it first launched, so I'll probably be towards the back end, or not back end, but I'll, you know, be one of the later orders that gets shipped, so a lot of people are going to get it first and be able to do their videos. By the time all of the craziness has settled down with moving and whatnot, it's just going to be old news by the time I get to it. So I was like, as much as I think it's beautiful and I do want to pick it up, I do eventually plan, well, I shouldn't say I plan to, because I feel like you never know what the future holds, but I would like to pick it up during a sale. But as far as picking it up on launch date in order to review it as quickly as I can, you know, around when it launches, I am not going to be picking it up, just because, like I said, I don't think I would be able to get to it in time. And as much as I like the palette and I want to review it, and I like the color story, I think it's just such a fun color story. It'll create some really unique and fun all matte looks. I love an all matte look. It's just, it'll be one less palette I have to work on getting a review to you guys during that crazy time when we're going to be moving houses, and I'll have to be figuring out a different setup and all that craziness. So yeah, I talked myself out of it today. And as you can see, I'm still dealing with it. As I said, right now, the way I'm talking myself out of it is I'm not gonna get it at launch date, but I'll pick it up during her next sale. And we'll see whenever her next sale comes around, we'll see if the FOMO is still there and if I end up picking it up. But I do think it is a really pretty palette, and I would have been so curious to have both of them, and you know, the Creepy Cute 1 and 2, because I do have the Creepy Cute 1 in my collection. So it would have been fun to have both of those palettes to create looks together. I just think that would have been a fun combination with all of them. But yeah, I am not going to be picking it up, so slight regrets. All right, so those are the 10 recent palettes that I almost bought. Like, I was so close to buying a couple of them. I even had them in my cart. I was figuring out the shipping, but I decided not to get them. And those are kind of my thoughts on them, and whether I have any kind of FOMO, or whether I have any regrets on saying no and whatnot. As a whole, looking back, there's a little part of me that would love to have all of these palettes in my collection, sure, just because I am a makeup enthusiast and I have an eyeshadow palette problem and I love playing with eyeshadow palettes. But at the same time, I can, like, the logical side of Katie is like, you didn't need all those palettes, you're fine not getting them. So I thought this would just be a fun video to get to sit down and chit chat with you guys about, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you did like this type of video, and if you did, I'll kind of keep track as the months go on, because especially during this crazy time in my life that we're heading into, I know I'm gonna have to say no to more palettes that I probably will want, but you know, I'm trying to not get too many so I don't get overwhelmed. So if you enjoy this type of video, let me know, and I'll keep track, and the next time I have 10 palettes that I said no to, we can sit down and talk about them, and that can be my way of getting to talk about them on my channel, even though I'm not gonna be able to, like, use the palettes on my channel. And especially right now that I'm not doing too many Will I bites, I'm gonna try to sneak in a couple, but I'm not doing them like I used to every week, and I don't know when I'm gonna be able to get back to that. So this will be one way I can kind of chit chat with you guys about makeup that's releasing, that's came out, but I'm not buying them to show on my channel. So I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this video. As I said, it was inspired by Angelica Nico's video, so definitely go check her video out if you enjoyed this. And that is going to be it for my video. As always, I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92 over there, and I show reels, up close eye pictures, we do unboxings, we do swatches of palettes, all that sort of thing. So check me out over there if you want daily-ish content. And with all that said, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.